From Eli Manning refusing to play for San Diego, to Kobe demanding a trade personally, here are the biggest shock trade requests in all of sports. First up, I bring you the Chris Paul fiasco. After getting drafted by the New Orleans Hornets, Chris Paul blossomed into a superstar with the franchise. But the lack of support around him led to Paul's refusal to sign a new contract and his demand for a trade in 2011. It was an utter shock for everyone involved because the Hornets really thought he wouldn't leave. But it looks like Paul had his heart set on a move, as he wanted to move to the New York Knicks to play alongside Carmelo Anthony and Amar Stoudemire, or a move to the Lakers to play with Kobe Bryant. Neither of the two moves happened, with the then NBA Commissioner David Stern controversially stepping in and stopping the three-way deal between the Hornets, the Lakers, and the Rockets. But Paul eventually got his wish as he moved to the Los Angeles Clippers. At the very least, the point guard did play for the Hornets for more than half a decade before demanding a trade, right? Because many players refused to play for the teams that drafted them, which was what happened with John Elway and the Colts back in the 1981 draft. Elway was the most talented player in his draft class, and the Colts had the first pick. Everyone knew what was going to happen. However, Elway's father met with the Baltimore franchise and told them that his son would never play for the franchise. The Colts called his bluff and went ahead to take Elway as the first pick. But it wasn't a bluff. He flat out refused to be a part of the team, even shockingly threatening to switch careers to baseball. And that wasn't a bluff either, because the Yankees had taken him in the second round of the 1981 MLB draft. The Colts didn't want to see their first pick go to waste, and eventually caved in, trading Elway to the Broncos.
I want to give myself the best chance to be the best quarterback that I could, and I looked at that organization and what they were doing, and I didn't think that was going to give me the best chance to show off my talent. Not show off my talents, but to win a Super Bowl.
As shocking as Elway's trade request was, few trade requests broke Twitter like Kyrie Irving's demands. Now, why would a budding superstar who has already won the NBA want to be traded? Sure, the team he's playing for might not be as good as the Golden State Warriors, but it has a superstar in LeBron James, and they're making the NBA Finals every year. For Kyrie, though, this was the very issue. No, not the finals bit. The fact that LeBron James was on the same roster as him. He wanted to become the main superstar rather than share or have some portion of the spotlight. Of course, Kyrie was never going to become the leading name on the Cavs roster with LeBron still there. But he was still very young when he asked for a trade. Still, that's not it for the surprise factor in this story. As Kyrie's move to the Boston Celtics was confirmed, something that came out of the blue completely. The Celtics weren't even rumored to be in the running, but eventually joined in and got their man. The less said about how the move panned out, though, the better. But sometimes shocking trade requests and moves work out just perfectly. And Kawhi Leonard is the best example of that. From the outside looking in, San Antonio Spurs were the most consistent franchise in the NBA since the late 90s, up until the mid to late 2010s. No doubts about that, in my opinion. Led by a universally respected coach and the perfect blend of veterans and youngsters, what's not to like? But the Kawhi Leonard drama didn't let the Spurs escape with a spotless reputation. Now, Kawhi had been injured for the majority of the 2017-2018 season, and he'd been shut down in January by the franchise, which didn't go down well with the player. Both sides disagreed on the best course of action and the severity of the situation, with Kawhi deciding to spend his time away from the franchise to get into shape and rehabbing on his own. And that would be that for the Kawhi-Spurs relationship, as the star notified the franchise that he had no intentions of playing for them anymore. The Spurs were initially reluctant, but then let him go as he completed a move to the Toronto Raptors, which saw the San Antonio side landing DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and a first-round pick. In hindsight, the Raptors were more than happy to let all those players go, because Kawhi's short stay in Toronto got them a championship, and there's nothing quite like that. Sometimes, though, even the most unexpected trade can work out for both sides, and Eli Manning's refusal to play for the San Diego Chargers did. Very much like John Elway, Manning had been drafted as the #1 pick, and he too refused to play for the team that drafted him. A lot similar to John's situation, Eli's father also told the Chargers that his son won't play for them, revealing that he had his heart set on a move to New York instead. It led to one of the most influential trades in NFL history.
I saw a little kid just bust through the door. He goes, "Manning's been traded to the Giants." I go, "Is that true? Is anybody can follow this up? Is this real?"
The Chargers were compensated well, with Philip Rivers, the number 5 overall selection, moving to San Diego, along with Nate Kading and Sean Merriman from the picks they received from New York. It worked out pretty well for both sides because, as you all know, Manning became a 2-time Super Bowl champion with 2 MVPs too. Well, Rivers didn't exactly bring the Chargers a Super Bowl, but was still a better quarterback than Manning himself for many years into their respective careers. Of course, the Giants won that trade, but the Chargers knew this would happen, and still ended up with a decent return, which you can't always expect. But it's hardly the most exciting quarterback controversy, because taking the cake is Joe Montana's trade. The 49ers were the most dominant team in the NFL, but in the early 90s they faced a major dilemma. Joe Montana was the face of the franchise, leading them to 4 Super Bowls. But with Montana missing 1991 and most of 1992 due to an elbow injury, Steve Young emerged as the new star. He won the NFC MVP honors in 1992, but the San Francisco side had no idea what to do when Montana returned. He refused to play backup to Young and instead demanded a trade to the Chiefs. At one point, the 49ers even agreed to make him the starter, but he wasn't having any of it and moved to Kansas City. He'd take the Chiefs to 2 playoff appearances before retiring a couple of years later. On the other hand, Steve Young went about his business, winning another MVP in '94 and leading the 49ers to a Super Bowl. Remember though, not every trade request leads to the player leaving, as the Lakers convinced Kobe Bryant to stay in 2007. Oof, what could have been? Kobe would go on to win 2 more championships with the Lakers, leading them to 3 consecutive finals. But before all of that happened, he requested a trade in 2007. I don't blame him. The Lakers front office was getting every decision wrong back then. And Kobe wanted out because he wanted to win. Many rumors suggest that the Lakers had even sounded out a move for LeBron James to replace Kobe. Can you imagine LeBron playing for the Lakers all the way back in 2007? Of course, though, you don't need to imagine because he did end up with the Lakers more than a decade later. And Kobe was convinced to stay put, which he did, winning 2 more rings in the process. That's all I have on the biggest shock trade requests in sports.